The confetti of smoke and sparks still clung to the edges of the landing platform, as Sergeant Kellen Miles adjusted the strap of his standard-issue pulse rifle, trying not to look as exhausted as he felt. Victory parades were a peculiar thing in the Galactic Coalition. Some planets favored gold medals, others wanted trophies, and a few had more unconventional ways of celebrating soldiers. Today, it seemed, the universe had decided that he should be gifted a person, specifically a woman, an alien woman to be precise. When she stepped forward, Kellen had to blink twice. Not because she was breathtaking, although yes, she was, but because she looked almost entirely human, aside from the long, delicate crescents of her ears peeking through her dark hair, moving with a nervous alertness that made her look perpetually intrigued and mildly offended at the same time. Her eyes, a soft amber shade, swept over him as though weighing whether he was worth her time or if she should simply vaporize him on the spot and be done with it. "Congratulations, I suppose," Kellen said, clearing his throat. "I mean, I didn't expect to be gifted anyone." She tilted her head, ears twitching. "Most soldiers don't. Do you often receive human companions as prizes?" Her voice had a melodic lilt, slightly musical but with an edge that made him feel like she could dismantle his ego with a single sentence. "I know," he admitted. "It's more medals and commendations usually." "Commendations? You fought a war and received paperwork?" she asked, one eyebrow arching. "Interesting species." Kellen gave her a lopsided grin. "Well, I did get a medal too, but apparently that doesn't count as exotic enough for the Coalition." He gestured vaguely toward the hovering transport that had brought her to him, the metal still humming faintly from its anti-gravity thrusters. "Anyway, welcome aboard, I guess." She didn't move. Instead, she studied him with the faintest smirk, as if calculating how long it would take for him to embarrass himself. "I will accept this offer of hospitality under one condition," she said. "You refrain from calling me a prize, a gift, or anything remotely demeaning. Fail, and I will find a way to make your life inconvenient." Kellen's ears, his metaphorical ears, pricked at the word inconvenient. "Fair enough. I'll try not to, inconvenient." "Precisely." She allowed herself a small nod before turning to glance at the bustling spaceport beyond. "Lead the way, soldier." The shuttle ride to his station was awkward. Kellen tried to make conversation, commenting on the view of the shattered moons and the swirling nebulae, but every attempt was met with a dry remark or a subtle eyebrow lift. At one point he attempted humor. "So, do you do well with, like, military slang, or should I stick to please and thank you?" "Your incompetence is charming," she replied, folding her arms, in a very pedestrian way. Kellen laughed nervously, muttering something about charm being relative. When they landed, Kellen led her into the barracks. The station was a hybrid of sleek metal corridors and exposed wiring, humming with the low-energy pulse of galactic tech, as if the walls themselves had mood swings. Robots scuttled past, some waving mechanical arms in polite greetings, others ignoring everything as they filed maintenance reports to nowhere in particular. She moved beside him silently, ears twitching at every electronic hum, every creak of the hull. "So," Kellen began, trying to fill the silence, "do you want a room, or a bunk? I can make a bunk technically if you want a bunk." She tilted her head, eyes glinting. "I observe that your attempts at hospitality are chaotic. I will take a room, not that I expect much comfort." "Well, it's a barracks. Comfort is relative," he said, shrugging. "But I can make it feel cozy. Maybe hang a poster or two, galactic posters with spaceships and stuff." "You like spaceships?" "I tolerate them, and your taste in decoration seems primitive." Her ears twitched sharply. Kellen winced. "However," she continued, "I will concede that some exposure to primitive aesthetics might be enlightening." Hours passed as he fumbled with the ancient coffee machine, a device older than half the colonies he had fought for. She leaned against the counter, watching him spill hot liquid across the metal surface, muttering something about needing to recalibrate his motor functions. When he finally succeeded, he offered her a cup with a flourish, only to realize she didn't drink the coffee. "Tea," she said, holding up a small thermos filled with a liquid that shimmered faintly with bioluminescence. Kellen made a face. "You drink glowing liquids. That's not hazardous." "Not for me. I doubt you would survive more than a sip," she replied, amusement flickering in her eyes. Kellen swallowed. "Noted, I'll stick to coffee." That night, as he tried to sleep, he realized he could hear the faint hum of her own presence in the next room. Her breathing was steady, controlled. He had been given a prize, yes, but she was far from submissive. And strangely, as much as he wanted to protest, he felt the beginnings of something unexpected, curiosity, maybe even anticipation, for the chaos, the banter, and the missions to come. By the time the station's lights dimmed for the night, Kellen was no longer entirely sure who had been gifted whom, and he suspected that neither of them would ever forget it. This chapter is just under 5,000 characters, setting up their relationship, humor, sci-fi setting, and alien-human dynamic. Kellen was halfway through recalibrating the grav stabilizers on the patrol shuttle when the alert klaxon cut through the hum of the station. The red lights bathed everything in a ridiculous glow, making him look like a poorly cooked alien steak. "Looks like someone's trying to ruin our first official mission," he muttered, tugging at his boots. She appeared in the doorway, ears flicking. "You are clearly unprepared. I suggest you stop improvising your panic and pay attention to protocol." "I improvise best under panic," he replied, grinning. "Trust me." "You exaggerate your competence," she said, voice flat. "This will be entertaining." The shuttle doors groaned as they opened, revealing the ruined satellite station orbiting a gas giant. It was a skeleton of metal and fire, hulls breached, lights flickering, and the faint shimmer of alien energy leaking from the cracks. Kellen inhaled the recycled air, trying not to wrinkle his nose at the smell of burnt plasma and ozone. "I take it this is bad?" he asked. "Your understatement is amusing," she said, pulling a small scanning device from her belt. It hummed and projected a translucent holographic map above her palm. "Hostile signatures detected. Several drones. Active security protocols. And one malfunctioning anti-gravity field likely to impale you on a support beam." Kellen's eyebrows shot up. "Well, that's reassuring." She rolled her eyes, her ears twitching like twin antennas. "You will survive only if you stop speaking." As they entered the station, Kellen stumbled over a floating panel. She snatched him by the sleeve, steadying him. "Your clumsiness is remarkable," she said dryly. "Do you practice?" "Every day," he said, shrugging. "Keeps life interesting." They moved through the corridors, her scanning device alerting them to every trap, every malfunctioning turret. Kellen tried to contribute, suggesting tactical formations and dramatic poses to impress her. She ignored him, muttering that dramatic poses did not improve survival odds. Yet when a drone emerged from a side corridor, firing beams of concentrated plasma, he jumped in front of her, waving his rifle like a conductor, trying to look heroic. The drone tilted its sensors, clearly confused by his antics, giving her a moment to disable it with a single pulse from her device. "Your heroics are inefficient," she said, "but amusing." He grinned, brushing soot from his uniform. "Efficiency is overrated." As they reached the control room, Kellen's boots clanged on the metal grating. Panels flickered with alien script, some of it moving as if alive. He touched one, accidentally activating a holographic projection that displayed a three-dimensional map of the station's interior. "Wow, this is really alive," he said. "It is," she said, her voice sharp with focus. "And it is hostile. Be careful where you step." A sudden alarm screamed as another drone materialized, this one larger, with segmented limbs and glowing cores. Kellen tried to shout a warning but ended up tripping over a loose cable. She sighed, pressing a button on her device. The drone's legs froze mid-stride, jerking awkwardly as if confused by some invisible joke. "Thank you," Kellen said, trying to sound heroic while untangling himself. "I think you would have been vaporized without me," she replied. Her ears twitched with the tiniest smirk. "Do not thank me. Consider it a mercy." He laughed. "Mercy noted. I'll add it to my list of reasons you tolerate me." The mission took them deeper into the station, past collapsed corridors and broken labs, until they reached the core chamber. Pulsating alien energy hummed from the walls, causing Kellen's hair to stand on end. "This place is alive," he muttered. "It is sentient," she corrected, tapping her device, "and it does not like visitors." Suddenly, a wave of energy shot toward them, lifting Kellen off his feet. He flailed like a marionette, arms and legs spinning. She grabbed him midair, setting him down with a firm push. "Control yourself," she said. "You are not a projectile. Not yet, anyway." He coughed, brushing himself off. "I'll try. I can't promise grace under fire, though." She shook her head, ears flicking sharply. "Your optimism is misplaced, but your survival instincts, accidental as they are improving." They reached the central terminal, where a tangle of alien circuits threatened to overload. Kellen tried to pull the interface apart with brute force. "Maybe I can smash it into submission." "Do you want to die?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Well, that would complicate our partnership," he said, grinning despite the sparks flying past his face. "Do not complicate anything with your idiocy," she said, pressing her device against the terminal. Energy flared, circuits hummed, and the room stabilized. The danger subsided as quickly as it had appeared. Kellen leaned against a console, panting. "Well, we did it. Teamwork, right?" She regarded him silently for a long moment, then allowed herself a small smile. "You are less insufferable when not actively dying. We will survive together, if only for now." Kellen laughed, brushing soot from his jacket. "I'll take that as a compliment, maybe." As they left the station, the view of the gas giant below glimmered through the windows. He glanced at her, feeling a strange mixture of admiration, relief, and curiosity. She wasn't just an alien prize. She was sharp, capable, and entirely unpredictable. And somehow, despite his clumsiness and her pointed sarcasm, he found himself looking forward to the next mission. The shuttle rumbled as it left orbit, engines humming against the backdrop of a swirling nebula. Kellen perched uncomfortably in the co-pilot's seat, fumbling with a tablet that projected the route in 3 dimensions. "So, remind me again why we're escorting diplomats instead of, say, fighting aliens." "Fun is subjective," Kellen replied. "But surviving is mandatory, and hey, look at us, 2 improbable heroes." She flicked a switch on her wrist device, scanning the asteroids for hidden threats. 2 improbable, infuriating heroes. But yes, unlikely survival seems probable. As they reached the station, Kellen exhaled, finally allowing himself to relax. "So, next mission, less pirates, more paperwork." Her ears twitched. "Do not tempt fate with your naive optimism, but if paperwork involves less explosive death, I will endure it." Kellen laughed, leaning back in his seat, grateful for her presence. He wasn't just surviving these missions. He was learning from her, relying on her, and against all odds, beginning to enjoy it. And somewhere deep in the hum of the shuttle and the distant twinkle of stars, he realized that trust wasn't just a word. It was the only way they were going to make it through this galaxy alive. The shuttle drifted silently through the dense orbital fog, lights dimmed to near invisibility as Kellen tried to suppress his usual nervous chatter. "So, this lab, what are we expecting? Mutant plants, alien germs with attitude." She perched on the edge of the console, arms crossed, ears flicking like delicate radar dishes. "You underestimate the creativity of rogue scientists. Expect everything and nothing. Mostly things that will try to eat you or rearrange your DNA." Kellen swallowed hard. DNA rearrangement sounds fun. "Fun is not a term I associate with survival," she said, her amber eyes glinting with amusement. "But I will tolerate your ignorance for the moment." As they approached the lab, its perimeter shimmered with protective energy fields that distorted the stars behind them. Kellen squinted at the flickering patterns. Looks like someone doesn't want visitors. I can respect that, sort of. Respect has nothing to do with it, she replied. And if you trip over the anti-gravity threshold, we both die. I'll try to stay upright, he promised, testing his footing as the shuttle doors slid open. They entered the chamber, walls lined with pulsating vats filled with glowing substances. Some contained organisms that squirmed against the glass, limbs and tentacles moving as if aware of their presence. Kellen gagged slightly. I'm beginning to regret breakfast. Regret is a human weakness, she said, stepping lightly between the vats. And yes, your breakfast choice will not save you here. One of the vats shivered violently, and a slimy appendage lashed out, striking the console. Kellen stumbled backward, bumping into another container, sending a small explosion of luminous liquid across the floor. She muttered under her breath, ears twitching, and flicked her device. A pulse of energy immobilized the creature mid-lash. Control yourself, she said, eyes narrowing. You are a hazard. I'm trying, he shouted, wiping slime from his uniform. You make it look so easy. I am not making it look easy, she corrected. It is easy for me. You, however, are an ongoing disaster. They moved deeper into the lab, the hallways growing narrower, walls bending unnaturally as if the station itself were alive. Kellen tripped over another loose panel, and she caught him just in time. If you die here, I will personally ensure your body becomes part of a failed experiment, she said, ears flicking in irritation. Fair enough. I'll live then, he said with a grin, brushing himself off. Barely. They reached the main research chamber, where vats of bioluminescent liquid shimmered with spliced organisms, each one writhing like a miniature galaxy. Kellen tried to admire the beauty, but a sudden alarm screamed as a containment field failed. One of the creatures, a spindly monstrosity with too many legs and eyes, began to emerge. Not on my watch, he shouted, grabbing a metal rod. It bounced harmlessly off the creature's exoskeleton. She muttered something under her breath, ears twitching sharply, and pressed a sequence on her wrist device. The creature froze mid-step, hissing in irritation. You might consider listening next time, she said. Or at least not waving sticks at sentient biology. Kellen grinned sheepishly. Noted, I'll stick to the dramatic gestures. A loud rumble shook the lab, as if the station itself disapproved of their presence. Sparks flew from overhead conduits, and the floor began to tilt with the failure of anti-gravity stabilizers. Kellen's hands flailed as he attempted to hold onto the railings. Could someone tell me why this keeps happening when I'm around? Because chaos gravitates toward you, she said, deftly floating to his side and securing him with a tether. Now move. The reactor is about to overload. He stumbled beside her as she interfaced with a glowing console. Streams of alien code ran across the screens, pulsating in rhythm with the building tension. I don't understand this, Kellen admitted, clinging to a floating support. Do not try to understand it, she said. Just survive it. The reactor hissed and groaned, threatening to erupt. She pressed a series of alien glyphs on the console, and a wave of energy stabilized the chamber. Kellen let out a long breath, wiping sweat from his brow. I have to admit, you make saving the day look easy. I am not here to make you feel good about yourself, she said, her lips twitching into the faintest hint of a smile. But yes, it is easier if I handle the actual dangerous parts. They navigated out of the collapsing lab, dodging falling debris and errant energy arcs. Kellen stumbled a few more times, each time saved by her quick reflexes and keen instincts. You know, he said, panting, I think I might actually be learning from you. Do not flatter yourself, she replied. You are barely competent, but slightly less so than before. Progress is relative. As they exited to the shuttle, Kellen glanced back at the lab, glowing ominously in the distance. So, next time, maybe fewer splicing experiments. Her ears twitched in amusement. Do not tempt the universe with such naive requests. But yes, ideally fewer explosions for you. Kellen laughed, adjusting his uniform. Fewer explosions, got it, I'll try my best. She gave a soft nod, allowing herself the smallest smirk. Try harder than usual. And as they lifted off, leaving the rogue lab behind, Kellen realized that survival wasn't just about skill. It was about the strange, chaotic partnership that had formed between a bumbling human soldier and an alien woman whose calm intellect could make life-or-death scenarios look almost manageable. Almost. The enemy fleet hung in the void like a swarm of metallic locusts, engines glowing crimson against the backdrop of the gas giant. Kellen gripped the controls of the coalition cruiser, beads of sweat forming along his brow. So, how do we stop 100 ships without losing our eyebrows or our lives? She stood beside him, calm as ever, ears twitching in anticipation. Stop speaking first, strategize second, and try not to crash us into any nearby moons if possible. Kellen laughed nervously. Your optimism is contagious. Do not confuse terror with optimism, she corrected, tapping her wrist device. Holographic schematics of the enemy vessels shimmered in the cockpit. We cannot outgun them, but we can outthink them. Their formation relies on predictable patterns. I can disrupt it if you follow my instructions exactly. Exactly, Kellen repeated, raising an eyebrow. I follow instructions exactly about as well as a space cat avoids gravity wells. Her lips twitched, the smallest sign of amusement. Then we will proceed with cautious optimism. The first wave of enemy ships charged. Kellen flipped switches, dodged plasma trails, and accidentally activated the ship's emergency horn. Oops, that's not part of the plan. They are confused, she said, ears flicking sharply. Your incompetence serves a purpose. Together, they wove through the enemy formation. She manipulated the cruiser's energy grids, redirecting power to shields and engines, creating unpredictable movements that the enemy couldn't anticipate. Kellen, inspired by her confidence, executed maneuvers that were unorthodox, reckless, and miraculously effective. Why does it feel like I'm piloting a drunken comet? He shouted. You are, she said flatly, and it is working. The enemy flagship emerged, larger and more threatening than the others, bristling with energy turrets. Kellen froze momentarily, then said, I have a plan, or at least a very improvised plan. She raised an eyebrow.